Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, whichever suits you best. I'm gonna preemptively apologize. I'm not feeling great today and I've been coughing, and so if I don't sound great in this video, I apologize. Anyways, I'm gonna do a little bit something different today. I've got a lot of the main of my Nemesis cockpit done. I still have some work to do on the one that Silent Avenger gifted me. But you know what? I'll just go ahead and I'll start off that way. I'll just go ahead and show you what I mean. So first of all, we'll open up my. So this is my full Nemesis cockpit. This is what the exterior will look like effectively. You can. We can go to object mode here to give you a little bit better idea of like the lines and everything in the cockpit. Um, there's actually quite a few different new lines in there that weren't in there the last time. But anyways, I want to kind of give you guys an idea of how I do things, because if I just released this, or if I just made this my single geometry inside a NIF, obviously when I apply a material file, it would apply to everything. We don't want that. So what I have done is this is going to be used for my collision model. I will export this using Asset Watcher. You know, I'll just go ahead and show you how you do that. So first of all, you would need to have Asset Watcher opened up. There is a guide on Nexus mods that will show you exactly what you need to do in that guide. But you'll bring up Asset Watcher, you'll go to settings, you'll make sure that it's set on meshes. You're going to decide your source folder, which is where you're going to be saving your file to, and then you'll be having an output folder, which is where you want it to make your new collision mesh. And then you will need to have Skyrim Special Edition installed on your computer, and there is a Blender Tools add-on in that will allow you to export collision, and that's what this little arrow up in here is. So if I click on that, it'll give me this little readout. So the way that works is I'll make sure that I'm in edit mode and I have my model selected. In fact, for this, I actually recommend that you remove your camera and your light. Oh, that's right. No, I actually have to go back to object mode. And that's why I recommend you remove the camera and light, or it will export that into the collision NIF, which we don't need the camera or the light. So anyway, so now I've got this verbiage up here. So export as BSFBX is how you export your actual collision node. I don't want to export it yet. First, I need to click on set recommended units. That way it shows that I'm set to those recommended units. By default, it will be set to 40. You want to make, so like right here, you'll see that. So by default, it's 40. I want that to be a 1. So I'm going to hit 1 and then enter. Boom. Now it's going to be 1 to 1, basically. One of these, oh, actually, you know what? It's not going to. I don't know why scale. Oh, I know why, because I just changed it to inches instead of. So basically, yeah, one of these little squares in here is an inch. Basically, is I think how that works. Don't worry about that though. I mean, I just know that you want it to be a 1. And then you're going to go over here to collision. You're going to go create collider. Now you've got a few different types. You can do a box, a sphere, a capsule, a convex hole, or a concave mesh. Now a box will literally just build a single 4-sided box for collision that surrounds the entire model. I don't want a box. A sphere, same idea, but it's a sphere that it will encase your model in. Again, don't want that. I'm not exactly sure what capsule is. I have never tried it. Convex hole. Now what a convex hole is it tries to hug the shape of your hole or whatever your model is and make it very, very close fitting to the outer edges, but it will not leave any gaps. There will be 0 gaps. So like all of these recessed lines in here, it's not going to try to fill those in with the collision. It's just going to overlay right over them because they're too close together for it to worry about. Concave is just like convex in that it hugs your model very close. However, it also will try to fill all the gaps. So like if you have a hole in your model, it will fill in the inside of that model and it will leave the openings, accessible for opening. So typically for an exterior model, you want to use convex because it will save computational power because it doesn't have to make as complex of a model, but it's still close enough to the shape of your model that it gives you a nice solid surface. Concave is what you would use for an interior, if that makes any sense. So for this, because it's an exterior, I would go to convex hole, and then I would go to create rigid body. Now here you can actually set like the mass of your body. This really doesn't matter that much. I'll be honest with you. Unless you are making something that's going to be havocable, something small that you're going to be able to like kick around in the world, the mass really doesn't matter. So I normally just leave it at default. I leave the mass, the friction, and restitution at default for like ship parts because you aren't going to be able to move them with your character, so there's no reason for that to even be messed with. So that would be that, and then I would go to export, and then I would click export as BSFBX. Now I'm not going to actually do that right now because, well, I'm not actually trying to export the collision model. So, but you can see that I've added some detail here to the rear wall. I've put a little subtle M and an A in the in the rear wall. You probably won't even really notice that after I texture it. But anyways, this model, clearly I'm not going to use a single material file to texture it. So this will just be used for building my collision. Now, if I want to we're going to open. No, we are not going to save. Now, if I go to my Nemesis exterior, you're going to see, oh, well, it's the same model, but it's got a whole bunch of stuff cut out of it. And that is because this is the main part of my hull. So it's everything that will be colored that it'll probably be, a steel gray color. It'll probably be like a painted gray color. And I'll use that same color in the construction kit so that it can have that color manipulated with the colorizing in the ship builder. So that's going to be that material file. But I also have, like windows and a frame and the exhaust ports and the headlight, framing here that, well, I don't want those to all just be the same color as the rest of the hull. I don't want it all gray. I just want some of it. So that's going to start off gray. Then if I open up my next part, no, we don't need to save that right now. I'll go to details black. So I purposely named the exhaust ports that I had cut out of that hole details black because I plan on giving them a black material file, or at least as close to black as I can get, because that's the color that I'm going to want them as default. And then I can open up the next part and I've got a details bronze. So these are the parts that I've cut out that I want to be bronze, which is the little weapon attachment point on the bottom, plus then the headlight locations. And then if I open up the window frame, now the window frame is a little bit different than everything else because it doesn't have an exterior-interior separation. It's all one piece because it's going to be the same color on the interior as it is the exterior, so there's no reason to have multiples. But if I come here and I show face orientations, you're going to see I've built out. Now there is a couple of little gaps in here. That's actually perfectly fine. Those actually match up and line up on parts of the exterior and interior holes. So you can ignore the fact that those normals look like they're flipped because they're actually on the inside of the frame. But the frame, it'll be like a solid steel color, probably a little bit shinier than the rest of the hull. So there's that. And then I have the window. The window is two different pieces. There's an exterior and an interior version. No, we don't need to save that right now. The reason for that is, and we will go ahead and bring up face orientation to show you. And the reason for that is because I like to make like blast shield options in the equipment panel for the cockpits. And so for the blast shield, I don't want it to be a solid color. I want it to be a solid color on the outside and then a different color on the inside. I want it to be basically invisible on the inside. That way you can see through it. So I don't have it, you know, like two-sided. Instead, I have that same shape as an interior option as well. And so for like the main NIF of the cockpit, it will have both an interior and exterior geometry. There's the interior version. It will have both the interior and exterior in that NIF, and they'll be glass textured. And then for the blast shield version, it will only have the exterior version in the NIF. It's not necessarily, no, yeah, it will be. It'll just be the exterior version of the NIF with a color attached to it, and that's how you can get that blast shield in there. So anyways, that's how that works. And then, you know, you add all of those parts inside your NIF in NIF scope, and you will have the full cockpit, so on and so forth. But anyways, let's get back to, oh, you know what? Actually, I'll show you this too. We'll open the interior, the Nemesis interior, just so you can see that there is some slight differences on the interior versus the exterior. We'll go ahead and do face orientation so you can see that we are on the interior model. Now, the same cutouts still exist because, like I said, there's going to be glass, you know, up in here and everything. But what you will see here, and that you may not realize, is that like this framing around these windows, it comes down instead of going up like it does on the exterior. And same thing with like the subtle letter M and everything. So like on the outside, it looks like it's coming out, but of course I won't be able to see that because it's not textured on that side. But on the inside, it looks like it's actually coming in. And that is done on purpose so that we can kind of give it, you'll see that there's actually 2 layers of interior here, of this interior wall. That's purposeful so that it looks like it's got some meat to it, and so that when I stick the door connection in here, it doesn't just look like it's overhanging the wall and the wall is paper thin, because we don't want the wall to look paper thin. So now what's left for the interior? It's stuff that won't actually be in this specific geometry. It is the floor and some walls. So like this part up here won't actually be accessible from the interior because that's going to be behind, you know, up and behind like the exhaust and that. So I'm going to build a wall out, probably all the way up pretty much, and it'll be on both sides. And then I will also build a floor. Now the wall I will actually build inside this model, and it'll just be part of this geometry. But the floor will not be. The floor I will have this model imported to make sure I get my dimensions for the floor correct. But the floor will be a separate model, and that's specifically because I want to make sure that the collision for the floor is actually separate from the rest of the interior model collision, so that your NPCs will be able to use appropriately when I nav mesh it. Not that that really matters much yet, but that's actually what we're going to get to now. So my idea for the flooring is basically, so you're going to have your pilot seat up here. I'm going to have probably a couple of little side stations here up against the wall, like right around here. We're going to have like a navigation table towards here, and then we're going to have some I want some straight up and down walls here that we're going to have some like jump seats to connect to or to sit in for crew members. But I'm going to have the flooring be pretty solid up here, up against the wall and underneath the pilot seat, and probably even underneath the stations here. But before we get to those stations, I want to have like this center path here. I want it to be have like a floor grating that you'll be able to see through, and then I'll have like some pipes or something underneath it. That's the idea. Kind of give it a little bit more, just give it a little bit more detail than the previous release that I had. So that's going to be the idea. So right now, what I really want to work on is the floor grating, because once I get the floor grating parts of the floor done, I can build the rest of the floor around that. That'll be pretty easy. So right now we're going to actually save this. No, actually we aren't. We're just going to export this. I'm going to export it as an FBX just so that I can have that to pull up later when I go to actually finish out the rest of the flooring. So I can use this model without actually having it exported as my geometry for the floor. So you'll understand as I get there. Anyways, because I'm terrible at explaining things. So we're going to start a new file, general. No, we don't need to save that right now. We already did everything that we needed to do. We're going to go to edit mode. And I'm going to go ahead and start with this cube. This cube is fine. We're going to scale. We want it to be relatively flat, but I don't want it to be, I still want there to be some depth to it. You know, we aren't just making a flat plane. We're making a floor that has some depth because we want to make grading. So I'm going to start with this. This default cube is 2 meters cubed in game. It's 2 meters tall, 2 meters wide, 2 meters deep. So now that I've squashed it, it's still 2 meters wide and 2 meters deep, but now it's probably only, you know, I don't know, a couple of inches thick, which is fine. That sounds about right for a floor. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to faces. I'm going to click the top face and the bottom face only, and then I'm going to add an inset. And I want that inset to come in just a little bit. And then I'm going to do another inset that comes in just a little bit. And I want it to be not completely straight up and down. I want this to be a little bit of a chamfered edge. So that's why I'm leaving that, making it a little bit more of an inset than I have in the past for doing like lines on that. And now I'm going to go back to scale, and I'm going to actually shrink this down until until the bottom and top start to overlay each other. And it won't even start to overlay. It'll just get to there. Perfect. That's perfect. So we've got a nice flat plane right here in the middle, and that's going to be what I'm using for my grading. But what I have to do for this, well, first of all, let's do that, just so I don't screw things up. I'm just using the shift key to get just the top and the bottom, and we're going to subdivide and subdivide and subdivide and subdivide until we got a bunch of squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It doesn't really matter, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab every other square. We're going to treat it like it's checkerboard right now. Technically, I should just do it on this side because it'll be quicker. But this is going to give you an idea of how at least I do like floor grading. There might be better ways to do this that I'm not aware of, but this is how I do it. Whoever wants to do it a different way, hey, you know what? Have at it. There's a couple more little tricks that I can do with floor grading too that I'm not going to get into. But that's only because, you know, you got to keep some secrets. Or at least, you know, that's what I tell myself. Now I'm not done. So I've got the checkerboard pattern up here, but not down here. And I want to make sure that I start in that far corner so that I make the same checkerboard on the bottom. And yes, this is a little bit tedious, but I promise you the end result will be worth it. At least, you know, in my head it will be. We'll find out, I guess. Now, the reason why we're doing a checkerboard pattern and not just grabbing all of them is because when you do an inset, like if you have two blocks connected together and you start to do an inset, it'll treat those two blocks like it's one rectangle. But if you have them separated like this, it will treat each individual square like it's its own square. So this is just the first time we're doing this. It's not the only time we're going to do this, because we're going to have to go back and do all of the other blocks next. Now, the reason why I'm only doing the one side is because I know that I can use symmetricize to save time later. Which, if you've seen my previous videos, you'll kind of know what I mean by that. So anyway, so now we've got all of our pieces. I'm going to go ahead and do an inset faces, and I am going to just do it a little bit. I do want a little bit of a frame there, but not a ton. Oops. Control Z. And now we're going to go back to scale, and I'm going to purposefully try and get these as flat as possible. Perfect. And now I'm going to go through and actually delete all of those faces. Delete faces. And now you can start to see the start of our grate. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these faces. Just make sure that I'm, yep, good. And this is just to make a fairly simple floor grate. That's kind of what I'm showing you here. Like I said, there's probably another step that I'm going to do after this, but I'm not going to actually show because it's a way for me to kind of make a unique floor grate of my own. Is it necessary? No. But I like to give my stuff a little bit more detail's not the right word, uniqueness. I don't want it to be just like a regular floor grate for everybody. Okay, so now we got all of those selected. We're going to go back to inset. We're going to try to make this side about the same as that previous was, and then we're going to go to scale it until it won't scale down anymore, and then we're going to hit delete to delete those faces, and there you go. Now look at that, we've got ourselves a nice floor grate. And if I hit select all, mesh, symmetricize, there you go. I don't think it gets much cleaner than that. It's a nice clean floor grate. And that's how I do that. Do you have to make your floor grates that way? Absolutely not. But it's probably not the simplest thing to make, but it doesn't take a long time once you know how to do it. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to save this here. We're going to save it as Nemesis Floor Grate. But anyways, so that is something that will be in the mod. Maybe not this exactly as it is, but I might be doing something kind of neat with it. You guys, and there will obviously be more than one of these, you know, strung across in the floor. And you'll see where the framing is for the grating. But I think that turns out pretty good. You guys will have to let me know what you think. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that, guys. But anyways, just let me know what you guys think, and yeah, I'll get this. I'm still working on the models, obviously, but I'm working to get them done. My goal is to have my mod back up to available absolutely no later than Saturday evening. And if I can get it done sooner than that, I will. But that's going to be it for me today, at least for this video. I might have another video out later. Just depends on, honestly, it just depends on how I'm feeling. So until the next time, you wonderful people have a wonderful day. Bye for now.